Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you'd better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'.
This is a column entitled "It Takes a Train to Cry." As all you Dylan fans will know, comes from one of my favorite Dylan songs. It takes a lot to laugh, it takes a train to cry. I attended the Bob Dylan concert last Sunday night at the IU Assembly Hall. I've been eagerly awaiting the concert for months, since I considered myself something of an expert on Dylan. But even I didn't realize that Dylan's impact on contemporary society was comparable to the Bible and Shakespeare, as stated in a recent editorial in the Rolling Stone. And when I read that editorial, I began to wonder whether I really did fully appreciate Dylan's genius. I should have sensed what kind of night it was going to be as I was standing in line waiting to get into the auditorium. The guy beside me poked me and muttered, "Second month, third day, 8 o'clock. What do you make of that?" What? Today's the third day of February and the concert begins at 8 o'clock. Second month, third day, 8 o'clock. You don't think that's all a coincidence, do you? Of course not. Me either, man, but I wonder what it all means. Gee, I don't know. You can bet on one thing, man. Whatever it is, it's heavy. To avoid any further questions, I quickly eluded him and found my seat. I sat there quietly waiting for the concert to begin, and soon the lights flickered. The girl next to me nudged me and whispered, "Why do you think the lights flickered 3 times?" "To tell everyone to be seated," I replied. "Everyone knows that, man, but why 3 times? You don't suppose it has something to do with the Holy Trinity, do you?" Before I could admit my ignorance, the girl poked me to be quiet because he had just walked on stage, followed by the band. The concert began without a word of introduction, and after the second song, Dylan said, "Sure is nice to be here." The girl next to me shrieked, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay?" I asked. "What's wrong with me? Dylan just said, 'Sure is nice to be here,' and you're worried about my health?" "I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was that important." Important isn't the word for it. Do you know that all Dylan said during the entire concert in Chicago was, "Be back in 15 minutes"? Frankly, I didn't know that, but I was too embarrassed to admit it. To now, I had considered myself a true Dylan fan, but I was apparently sadly mistaken. I considered leaving in shame, but decided to try to act like I understood and hoped I could get by with it. I was doing great for a while. I just watched and listened to the crowd, and I applauded like everyone else when Dylan whined, "Even the President of the United States must sometime have to stand naked." I nodded knowingly when Dylan sang, "You have many contacts among the lumberjacks who get you facts when someone attacks your imagination." And I wept when Dylan pleaded, "Ain't it clear that I just don't fit? Yes, I believe it's time for us to quit." I was regaining my confidence when out of the nowhere, Dylan's guitar snapped a string in the middle of a cryptic rendition of the Gates of Eden. I sat there stunned, and as I feared, the girl next to me nudged me. "What do you think a broken guitar string means?" The pressure was on. I knew I had to meet that question head on, or I'd no longer be worthy of wearing my Dylan t-shirt. I stroked my chin and finally ventured, "Do you suppose it might symbolize man's inhumanity to man?" She stared at me pensively for a few minutes. Beads of sweat began to trickle down my forehead. Finally, she winked and said, "Far out. Man's inhumanity to man. Far out." I sighed and smugly sat back and enjoyed the rest of the concert, knowing my credentials as a Dylan fan were secure. Around 11 o'clock, the concert ended. Dylan said, "Thank you and good night," and then he and the band left the stage for good. I walked out into the frigid February night, warmed by the significance and history of the evening. And as I look back on it, I realize it was one of the greatest nights of my life. But there's one thing that still bothers me. I just wish I knew what Dylan meant by "thank you and good night."